Frank Hyder is a well-known, renowned visual artist. When he started to become an artist, he thought the journey would be a straightforward progression. Over the years, he has discovered that the road has many twists and turns, numerous hills and valleys, and countless challenges. Through this series of short stories, tales, and remembrances, his hope is that these will offer some valuable insight into the life of an artist and what's involved in becoming an artist. In the end, he has come to realize that he is not a painter or sculptor or anything in particular. He is more simply a creative person with great passion and love for the process of making art concerning people and the world around us, who shares his artworks with the public. Join us now as we listen to another episode of A Life in Art series.
Growing up in a small town in the 1950s was really pretty different than I think growing up in a small town is today. First of all, there was an awful lot of independence granted to a kid. You could just go out of the house in the morning and disappear all day on your bike and be anywhere in town, and there never really seemed to be any concern. Today, children, you never see kids out on the street like you used to, and everything is a parent-planned event. In those days, the only planned parent-type events were we had playground events or swimming pool events, or we had baseball in the summer, and we had some kind of midget football in the fall, and that was pretty much it. So you're supposed to, as a member of a small town like that, you're supposed to figure out who you are and how you fit in, and the only guides that you have are the guides that are given to you by the rest of the community. So in my town, when you got to be 10 years old, you wanted to be on the Little League baseball team because that's what everybody else was doing. And of course, that meant you had to go to tryouts, you had to pick some kind of a position to play, and you had to deal with maybe a local banker or a plumber or a lawyer who fancied themselves as a basketball or a baseball coach or whatever, and that person then became your new mentor and teacher in the new supervised sport. At the same time, as I said, there was a lot of on-your-own time and independence. So I was always trying to make money because my parents really just didn't have money, and giving me any money was not something that was common. It would never really have happened. So if there was a snowstorm or something like that, I would go around to neighbors and want to shovel sidewalks. If there was a lot of leaves to rake, I would show up with a rake and want to rake off people's yards. And I would get that money, and I was very fastidious about saving it. And I would have a can that I hid in my closet, which my brothers couldn't find, in which I would put that money. And anyway, as I would move around town, I used to walk by Haig's bike shop on Wyoming Avenue. Now, Mr. Haig had this bike shop, and it had a little showroom with a window in the front. And then if you walked up alongside the bike shop and you kept walking on the path, it took you to the backyard of his house, which actually was on the adjacent street. And in the backyard of his house, he had a huge pile of bicycles in all manner of disassembly, which he was using as a parts source for repairing bicycles. So anybody who had a bike, if you had a flat or if you needed spokes repaired or handlebars or anything, you would go to have Mr. Haig fix those things. Now, Mr. Haig was a feisty guy. Mr. Haig had no patience, and yet in some strange way, everybody always wanted to go see Mr. Haig. Well, first of all, he had lots of bikes, and it was interesting there just to look at all the bikes. And secondly, you could look in the window of his bike store, and the latest Columbia or Schwinn bike was always on display. And I had my eyes set on a brand new green Schwinn Tiger which was you had hand grip brakes, not back pedal brakes. It had a 3-speed gear control. It had this really cool custom seat and a pinstripe paint job and the word Tiger written on the side. And I had determined that that was going to be my bike. And it was all of $63.50, and it could be mine. Now, my little can was pretty close to $63, and so every little job I got, I put another 50 cents or whatever into the box until I ultimately had enough money to go to Mr. Haig and buy that bike. So I went down there with my can, with all of my coins and my couple of dollar bills, but lots of coins, quarters, silver dollars, all that matter in there. And I counted out all the money, and Mr. Haig brought that bicycle out of his shop into the yard and then tuned it up. He checked the air pressure. He showed me all these different things. And then he threw in a little set of these plastic things that could stick in the end of the handle grips that looked like streamers while you rode the bike, and they kind of flew in the air. And that was a special little thing he was giving me just so the bike would be a little bit more special. Anyway, I was riding that bike around town, and I was pretty proud of it. At the same time, I had tried out for the local baseball team, and I would ride my bike to the baseball practice, and then we would practice, and we were learning the game. And so it was decided that I was going to be the catcher for the Pioneer team, and the Pioneer team had, as its coach, a man who worked in the local bank, and his assistant coach was a fellow that worked in a factory in Philadelphia. And these two guys were very serious about baseball, and we had to really pay close attention. So anyway, it came around time for the opening day of the year, and what would happen is that the game, they didn't have all the opening day's game on the same day. So they opened the season, and I had ridden my bike to the season opener, but it wasn't my team. My team was going to be playing in a couple of days. So anyway, I went to the opener on my bike, and after the game, there were a couple of other kids there, and they were looking at my bike, and I said, yeah, it's really fast. And so they said, oh, I bet I can beat you. And I said, I bet you can't. So with that, we decided, let's race. So we're going to race down Cedarcroft Avenue. We started at the baseball field, and we start moving, and there's three of us riding fast as we could, and I'm pumping away, standing as I'm riding so that I can get more power. And at the last minute, one of them, the other two guys determined they're going to turn down Pine Street, and I'm still headed towards Oak Street. So I have to turn, and I'm ahead of them. So that means I had a very short wheelbase to turn on before I hit the curb. But I tried to make the turn, and as I did, I rode the bike straight into the front of a parked car, crashed into the front of the car. I flew over the handlebars, over the front of the car, and landed on the curb. And as I hit the ground, I could see my hands hit the ground, and I could see my left arm break and the bone come right up against the surface of the skin and fall back again. And I just laid there on the ground. I was in considerable pain, and my legs were all scratched up. My other hand was bleeding, and my bike was behind me, and the noise and commotion, all these people came out of their houses, and the people wouldn't let me get up because, and I wanted to get to my bike. And with that, this big white car drives alongside and stops. And here it was Doc Tatum, one of the town doctors, and he goes over and he says to a couple of the guys, he said, put him in the back of my car. So they load me into the back of his car, and he drove me to his office, where I go into his office, and he had a nurse there, and she came in, and he tells to the nurse, he said, look, take a hold of his shoulders and don't let him move. And with that, he takes my arm and wrenches it, pulls it straight out, and then snaps it back into place. And mind you, he didn't give me anything for that. He just pushed it back into place. And then he put a cast on it. And he said to me, he said, look, tomorrow you tell your mother you have to go and get an x-ray, but that should take care of it for now. And he had the nurse clean up my other cuts and put some Band-Aids on it. And then they wished me good luck and opened the door so I could walk home. I don't know where my bike is. I'm worried about what happened to it. Here's my brand new bike. I'm sure it's wrecked. I don't know what to do. How am I even going to explain to my mother that my bike is wrecked? So anyway, I go home. My mother explained that, I have this cast on my arm. She's upset with me. And really, mostly she was just upset because we had to go and pay for an x-ray. And I don't know what it cost, maybe $25, but it was a lot of money. And, so she was irritated at me for crashing my bike. Well, maybe she's right and maybe she wasn't. But anyway, we got the x-ray that demonstrated that the bone was properly set so they didn't have to do any more. And of course, then I had to find out where my bike was, and I was told that the police had taken it to Mr. Haig's shop. And Mr. Haig, I walked over there, and he said, "That's all right. I'll take care of it. It's got a few scratches. I'll clean it up. It'll be fine." So anyway, I went back to the baseball team and explained to my coach that I had broken my arm, and so I had to sit dressed in my outfit, the baseball outfit. I sat there, watched the opening game. And then I showed up 2 times a week for the different games in my uniform, sat there with my cast on my arm. And after 6 weeks of that, they took the cast off my arm. And I went to the baseball game without the cast. And I told the coach, I said, I'm ready to play. And he said, well, I don't think so, not yet. And so they waited and waited another week. And finally, the last day, the last game of the season, and I'm complaining now all the time to these guys. I said, look, I just want to play. And, in my mind, a kid should be, if you want to play baseball, you play baseball. But these coaches, what they wanted to do was win. They didn't care about the kids playing. They just wanted to win. And the way they talked to the kids when they were playing was very aggressive. There were parents in the audience screaming and hollering names at the kids, etc. And I was getting because I'm now just sitting on the bench, I'm not really playing. I'm just an observer. I'm getting to see what's really the dynamic of what's really happening. So finally, in the very last inning of the very last game, the coach tells me, all right, I'll let you bat. So I get to go up to the base to pick up a bat. And the best pitcher in the entire miniature baseball league, Mickey Lazanoff, was pitching. And he was terrific. He could throw curveballs. He was destined to have a future in baseball. So I step up to the plate and I look at the ball and I look around and I'm listening to the crowd, and he throws the first pitch. And I didn't care if it was close or not. I was going to swing at it because I just wanted to hit the ball. So I swung and I missed it. And the umpire behind me, who was a gruff, cigar smoking even while he was umpiring, chubby guy who hollered the word strike as I missed the first ball. And I can remember Mickey's father leaning against the fence and hollering, "That's it, Mick, take him out. He can't hit." And that just made me more upset. So I got ready for the next pitch, and I saw the look in Mick's eye as he turned and threw the ball. And I swung again, and I missed that one. And the umpire hollers, "Strike 2." And I'm really, now I'm not even... in a very good state of mind. I'm feeling very nervous, very anxious. I'm kind of embarrassed because I haven't hit the ball. It's my first time at bat in the whole season, and the game is now going to end if I strike out. And so I get ready for the next pitch, and the pitch comes. I swing and I miss, and the umpire hollers, "Strike 3." And with that, I just turned around, looked over to the dugout, and threw the bat across onto the ground and marched towards the dugout. And the coach was standing there, and when the umpire comes running up behind me and he said, "Look there, boy, you got to have it be a good sport. Just because you didn't hit the ball, it doesn't let you throw the bat." And I looked at him and I looked at the coach and I thought to myself, these people aren't really caring about the kids that are here. This is something that doesn't make sense to me. And so my baseball career ended before it even began. I walked away from that baseball match that day and said to myself, I know one thing. I may live in this town and baseball and sports may be important to these people, but that's not what I'm all about. And I left there, and the next day I went over to Mr. Haig's shop and I asked if my bike could be taken back, and he showed me he had cleaned it all up, and I climbed up on my bike and rode down his driveway and rode back home. And the memory of being able to really see through a lot of those things that were happening in that little town and what it meant to the people in the town as opposed to what it really meant to me. And I said to myself, I have to really get my own priorities in order here. The things that people here may want me to do are maybe not the things I really want to do.
Thank you for listening. If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, please reach out to Frank Hyder on Facebook or Instagram. We hope to see you at one of the next A Life in Art episodes.